So, episode 6. I'm going to start off with a trip I made back in April this year to visit Rawene in Auckland. Rawene is a near sister ship to Petrel and is still in her original configuration with a gaff-rig. Basically, I went there to record and document the construction details and fit out, etc. I noted that the cabin interior was a bit fussy for my taste, but it was probably true to the period and probably built to the owner's specifications. I had been thinking of some time of not replicating the interior as original, not that I know what it was on Petrel. I would prefer something less fussy, more practical, considering that it is a race boat, not a cruising boat. I hasten to add that the exterior of the boat, deck, cabin, rig, etc., will all be replicated as original. If there had been some semblance of the interior remaining, I would have restored it, but there was nothing left of it, so I felt I had a blank canvas. The main change is that I wanted to do without the two bulkheads so that we could see the inside of the hull from stem to stern and see her beautiful shape and lines. Of course, the bulkheads are more than decoration. They perform bracing across the hull. So this bracing will be replaced by installing two new laminated ring frames. This method has been used in many quality restorations. This is from Rawene. So I set about building two new laminated ring frames. These were built in 3 parts and again bolted with Sikaflex adhesive through the stringers and hull. So the next major job was to reinstall the knees, the objective of which is to reinforce the joints between the main deck beams and the hull, both horizontally, lodging knees, and vertically, hanging knees. I was able to reuse the original lodging knees, but not so the hanging knees. So I made some new templates and then went looking for appropriate stock, which I didn't have and couldn't find until I was directed towards the William IV restoration, a paddle steamer in Newcastle, which had some grown stock knees left over. So it was off to Newcastle to pick up these knees, which were very heavy and thick, and I had been told were tea tree, which is the best stock available, but as soon as I started cutting into them, I realised that was not the case. They looked like an Australian hardwood of some description. However, I persevered as I thought they would still perform the function required. But they were pretty rough and took a bit of work to get them into shape. Can you imagine doing all this without an electric plane? What I was trying to do here was to get one face reasonably fair and straight before tackling the other. I only went as far as I could with this roughing in. I then needed to try and figure out which was the best part of this piece of timber to actually get the knee out of. You can see here the curved grain of the timber, which is what gives the knee its strength. The grain of the knee doesn't always follow the curve of the template, so it takes a bit of juggling trying to find a sweet spot. So it was decision made and off to the bandsaw. It's so tight in this boat shed for space that I often have to move the bandsaw around the piece. Should emphasise that these first cuts were indeed rough. My small workshop, thick as it comes in for a bit of abuse, but I do look after it by putting in lots of new blades. Most of these pieces had some serious defects and required graving pieces. This was another method of doing the graving pieces with the small router, and also by shaping the piece slightly wedge shaped meant that I get a good tight fit. This is what a multi-Gravo glue up looks like. So finally each knee is fully shaped, Gravo's glued in, checked for final fit, then sanded, edges rounded, and is ready for marking up to drill for the retaining bolts. I did use a wood stain on all these pieces in order to blend all the different grains and colours together. Next, each individual bolt is measured and made from 3/8 copper rod with the coach heads peened in a bolt jig. And next we cut the rod for the appropriate thread size for the silicone bronze nuts. Again, it looks like I'm putting on a counterwise thread, but that's because I'm filming through the front of the iPhone again. I must stop that. And finally, the installation. not easy on a concave shape. And you can see why I'm using masking tape. So these pair of knees are at the mast deck beams, where along with the lodging knees add a huge amount of strength to support the leverage of the mast. So that's about it for this week. Next step, we will be dealing with the deck blocking and all sorts of other bits and pieces that need to happen before I can put the deck on. So please like and subscribe and keep the comments coming. I'd very much like to get to at least 2,000 subscribers. I wish. And thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.